Thank you, Mr. Aframe. There are so many aspects of your career that I could speak to, but I want to raise a question about something that you've identified as an important part of that career. We ask you to identify the cases you've been involved in that you wanted us to take note of. And the fifth case is one entitled United States versus Smith. In that case, you represented the United States prosecuting at trial, on appeal, and in post-appeal litigation. It involved a defendant who had produced child pornography images by raping a 3-year-old girl and capturing the encounter on video. The defendant was ultimately convicted and sentenced to 600 months of imprisonment. The conviction and sentence were affirmed on appeal. The reason I raise this case is because of a note that you've included in describing the case. And you said, an important part of the trial preparation was helping the victim's parents deal with feelings of guilt and allowing the defendant access to their daughter. The reason I raise that is this has been an issue which we've considered in this committee, something known as CSAM, child sexual abuse. It is an outrageous situation, horrible, and has impacts on children which go far beyond the obvious. And it appears this case that you represented the government in at least touched on that same concern that we all share. We passed a bill out of this committee unanimously to deal with the people in big tech and their response to try to protect our children. As a parent and grandparent, I live in fear of this little piece of technology. And when I see my grandchildren holding on to it and dealing with it every minute of every day, I wonder what's happening. Even the most conscientious parent cannot be sure that they're protecting their child. Would you comment on that particular note that you made in that description of the case?
Yes. So, Senator, as you've sort of described the facts, it was a very difficult case. It was a young child. The defendant had ingratiated himself to the family to get access to the child. And so, of course, the family, when it came to light what the defendant had done with this child, felt tremendous guilt. And so, obviously, prosecuting it in the traditional sense was an important part of that case, but it was a very important part of that case to work with the family, to console the family, to help the family understand that it was not their fault, and to help the family see that the criminal justice system can do only so much. We can do what we did, which is prosecute and put the defendant in jail, but ultimately this child was young and the family was going to have to, figure out how to move forward. And I think part of that case that I am most proud of, is that I was able to help them sort of change that mindset from guilt to figuring out how are they going to move forward when the criminal justice system part of the case was over.